Continuing in the Alka line of charming, self-aware robots like Short Circuit's Johnny 5 and Disney's WALL-E, this little mechanism is the very latest in the cutting-edge field of automated cuteness. A field which evidently places more emphasis on sweet facial expressions than capable steering mechanisms. It smiles, it warms your heart, it moves with all the precision and finesse of a cheap remote-controlled car. It's TERROVER for the PlayStation 3. You know, to be fair, this is actually a difficult game to review because it really doesn't feel like a bad game. It doesn't leave you with that pungent aftertaste so typical of games that are undeniably, unquestionably bad. In fact, quite the contrary, there's a lot to like about TERROVER. It's got a clever gameplay concept, a great style, and, of course, an adorable protagonist who runs on batteries. Now, you would think those traits would constitute a winning schematic, and really, they kind of do. But for all the things the individual components of TERROVER do well, the experience as a whole is entirely dependent on your reaction to its controls. That's where TERROVER will either charm you or frustrate you beyond belief. TERROVER is a platformer based on the concept of physics. You control a little mechanical rover with 5 wheels and loads of personality over terrain of varying geography, keeping in mind factors like weight, velocity, and gravity. And it might sound simple, but in execution, it's anything but. In fact, it's very challenging to traverse these levels successfully, and there are 2 main reasons for that. First, TERROVER demands an altogether different skill set than most platform games because it plays altogether differently. Your rover's mobility is far more dependent on the laws of Isaac Newton than those of, say, Super Mario, despite how closely the game may sometimes resemble a standard platformer. In fact, no matter how much platforming prowess you may have, it takes time to get used to balancing your weight and your wheels during every movement. If you could imagine being forced to be aware of the distribution of Mario's weight and the position of his feet prior to landing, you start to get a sense for the nuance and challenge inherent to a game like TERROVER. Secondly, and perhaps most importantly, are its controls. You see, TERROVER is played with a control scheme one could describe as unique at best. The rover moves in whichever direction it's facing with the R2 button, and the analog stick is used to distribute its weight. You can switch its direction with the X button, and the robot can make a little hop with a tap of the square button. Now, my problem with these controls is that, in execution, they just feel a bit clunky and awkward. Merely moving the rover through simple platforming segments quickly turns into a wrestling match with the controls. It's hard to convince the robot to do what you want it to, and to me, the game felt extremely frustrating as a result. So obviously, consider this a critical review, but at the same time, I'm not at all willing to call TERROVER a bad game, not by any means. The verdict on this game isn't quite so clearly defined. I may have struggled with its controls, but others may not. I have a feeling that for everyone who may agree with my assessment, just as many will find the controls' obvious depth and complexity to be rewarding, not frustrating. Of course, it's just gonna require a lot of patience, a lot of practice, and a lot of persistence to overcome what I consider their clunkiness. For most gamers, TERROVER is going to come off in one of 2 ways, either as broken and almost unplayable, or genuinely interesting and challenging.